Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to the 817 podcast. Me and Jimmy are back. I know it's been a while, but we're here still. I don't think we're questioned giving up. I don't know. Maybe it did go through my mind. I don't know about you, Jimmy, but we're here. What's up, man?
Not too much. Yeah, it's been a wild, 3 of the last 4 weeks. And the last 2 weeks we were planning on podcasts and just logistics did not work out. And so last minute we had to just say, yeah, it's not going to happen this week. But we're excited to be back recording the day after Christmas. How was your holiday?
It's good. It was good. So, a part of the reasons why we haven't been recording is real life has been extremely busy for us, with just the holidays and like that Thanksgiving, the holiday time is also just busy for other things as well. But then I got COVID. So the Christmas was actually like my last day on quarantine. So I had a big present, was just me being able to interact with society and go back out and about. So that's
first out of your room.
Yeah, out of the room. So it was awesome. So that was Christmas, and me and Carrie Moon have one thing in common. We both had COVID over the holidays. But we both like to drink as well. So, we got those. There are some similarities. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So what do you want to jam about? What's your I know New Year's. This is kind of our last pod of 2021.
Yeah. I guess the new one will come out on January 2nd. That's crazy. So we have stuff from this week, but we're also gonna dip back a little bit into things we wanted to cover the last couple weeks. And as we go, I think we'll also be dropping some New Year's resolutions for Fort Worth for 2022, which is crazy because I'm pretty sure it's still 2020. But we are going to start with the Rivian deal, and what for a long time it seemed not necessarily in the bag, but it seemed like there was a very good chance that Rivian was going to be building their new plant in Fort Worth. Was last minute. We got cut out from under us by Georgia, and specifically the Atlanta area.
It's I saw it's 35 miles northeast of Atlanta, and if you did that to Texas, it'd basically be in Frisco or somewhere. So it doesn't that's like, if I was an Atlanta person, I'd be like, yo, that's not Atlanta. That's super far away.
Yeah. So it doesn't count for Atlanta. But Fort Worth lost out on the deal, which truly is a bummer. There's a lot of really high-paying jobs, and just being the epicenter of electric car manufacturing would have been a really incredible kickstart to the area. So you know that Robert Stearns and the people behind economic development were really going all out, putting together the biggest incentive package that Fort Worth ever has. But unfortunately it didn't pan out. And I don't know. It's tough to see Fort Worth keep losing out on these opportunities. Clearly there is something that the area doesn't have that these companies are looking for, where we can get close, we can get right up to the finish line, but we haven't been able to jump over it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's been a while since the news came out, but my take on it is that Georgia did a blockbuster deal. A deal, their biggest deal in the state of Georgia history, and their Kia deal that they did for Kia, I want to say $7 to 10 years ago was $400 million. And they said this package blew out this package. So we offered 440. So what I think shows that Fort Worth is always 10 years behind is even in our investment offerings is like we offered the Kia package when we're in Rivian now. So it's like, that is just, I think, an example of how we're steps behind when it comes to being prepared for this. And another big thing for the deal was about educating and hiring talent, right? And so I feel like we're going to always have an issue there. I know we have the Texas A&M initiative, and I think that will really boost and help. But still, the lack of density, diversity. Georgia is being like, I look at the two places that are growing really fast. It's the South, but it's South places that are also showing signs that they could maybe go blue, right? Like the signs of Arizona and Georgia are two places where everyone's moving to. I mean, Texas too, but if you're making these decisions, that's kind of happening. So I do look at what's coming to Fort Worth. Fort Worth is known as a blue collar city. What's coming? We got boots from California. We got truck tops from some other city. Like it's very, when you play with this brand, those are the companies you're going to get, and you couldn't get a truck company. So that's like kind of crazy, but all in all, like, I think we put our best foot forward. Everyone who this is never a game of we're not putting in the effort. We just took an L, and Fort Worth doesn't like to accept that we take L's. We like to say like, oh, we like to like brush around it. Like Carrie Moon got on a quote and was like, oh yeah, but like it was just about this, like nothing on us. Like we did what we could. It's like, it's all right that we're still, small.
Yeah. I saw Cameron Cushman share something. I can't remember if it was on the Innovate Fort Worth podcast, but to that point of like the talent piece is where Fort Worth is really lacking. And I definitely like the A&M campus will help that. But I do think that there is for a company that is going to make people relocate to here, if you like tell somebody in a more technical field, like, hey, I'm going to move you to Fort Worth, Texas, like it's not a flashy name, and it's not something that they're probably familiar with in any way. And so when you can say, hey, you're going to get to be able to live in Atlanta and, have a 30-minute drive out to work, or, you're within 30 minutes of it. Everyone knows that. Yeah. Everyone has a perception of that. And so, I mean, like you said, you get what you get when you play with the brand that Fort Worth has. And, it'll be interesting to see if we can break out of that, or who is the one that we can potentially break out of that for.
Let's be clear here, though. Like, this was just Rivian taking the highest deal. This would be like an athlete who says they selected a team because of their belief they could win, when really it was the team that gave them the most money. Yeah. So that's what's happening here. And also, like, a lot of this is speculative. Like, a lot of these incentive packages usually don't turn out to be what they say. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, and the Georgia package was also a blockbuster package because Rivian said they were going to bring 10,000 people. That's like the goal. Where I think in Fort Worth, I want to say it was 8,000. It could have been 10 to 12 as well. But, at the end of the day, Fort Worth proposed $440 million incentive package, which was the same as Georgia did for Kia, 15 years ago. So that's, we're at least a decade behind in our strategy and our pitch. But it's not all bad. Like, I think Rivian could have been a distraction and wouldn't we would have grew too fast and wouldn't have fixed a lot of the things I think we need to fix to become much more of a entrepreneurial city than just a real estate manufacturing city. That's just not proactive. We're reactive. We wait for the RFP, and then we don't have a good story. So
something else will come along, and hopefully when it does, we'll be ready to jump on it.
that right there is my New Year's resolution. Like, Fort Worth, let's recruit a software company. That's all I'm asking. Nothing crazy. Just a company that could be 20 people, 50 people, 80 people that actually has jobs that sound like this. Full stack developer, UX designer, data scientists. Because what economic development likes to do is they like to do their little pitch where, they say, people think we're doing bad at economic development. And they think we're doing bad because we're not winning these companies. And then they'll click the PowerPoint and they'll show like logos like Tesla, Amazon, and all the big core companies. But I don't think that's what we're asking for. It's that we're asking for relevant companies, even if they're small. I mean, there's all these new private startups worth, 500 million to $1 billion that has a little technical team. Let's get one of them. Like, it's just about having future relevant jobs rather than companies that are, making boots, making tops for trucks, and just very rugged blue collar jobs that Fort Worth always gets. We get the grunt working type of opportunities, not the niche specialized knowledge based companies. And that's the problem. So my New Year's resolution for Fort Worth, just recruit one software company next year.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
All right, so moving to something a little bit more practical and up our alley. This is exciting. Fort Worth buys 275 acres to create city's largest community park. Here's what to expect. When it opens, Rock Creek Ranch is expected to be Fort Worth's largest community park. The city purchased the 275 acres. It is southwest Fort Worth, $675 million. The land is southeast of Benbrook Lake near the Rocky Creek Ranch housing development. The development park is expected to isn't expected until 2026 bond election, so it is far away. But this is a big win for Jared Williams, City Council District 6. This is also kind of like plays in his like environmental science degree, which is cool. But big. I mean, 275. I think that's huge. When I look at the land around Tandy and even the land that's for sale, you're talking 7 to 10 acres. Like, so this thing is a behemoth.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great that it gives that area something to have as like a central hub, both as a park, and I'm assuming plenty of it's going to be left open for hiking and nature trails. I think it's really, really cool to give something central to that area, because I imagine that a lot of those people are hopping on the Chisholm Trail Parkway and coming into Clear Fork and Trinity Park. And I mean, you always hear people complaining about how crowded especially the biking is at Trinity. And that's because there's nowhere else to go. Like, when you only have one place for people to go bike, everybody that wants to go bike is going to be there on Saturday morning. So giving more opportunity to spread people out, I think is an absolute win and something that's really awesome for that community, and a big win for, like, Jared Williams was in a very tightly contested race when he goes up for re-election in whenever the next time is, 23. Like, this is going to be something that he can hang his hat on, that he's bringing to the area. So, I mean, I think in something that tightly contested, big things like this are going to go a long way for maintaining office. Not that that's necessarily the like reason he wanted to accomplish this, but I think it's something really big for him trying to hold on to that seat the next time he has to.
But it doesn't look like it's going to be like Fort Worth Nature Reserve as much as more going to be a park and a community kind of area. I mean, there's talks that there'll be a soccer fields and a skate park, if I'm kind of reading the vision correctly on the project based on the article.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's going to try and be a major community hub for that area. And with so much development going on out there, like having something this big feels like planning for the future needs of the community out in that area.
2026 is far away. Man, who knows what this is going to look like?
Yeah. Um, so speaking of land use, Fort Worth has for a while now been known as a very unfriendly place towards short-term home rentals. And the basically that's code word for Airbnbs, Verbos, anything where you're not renting to a person on a lease, essentially. So Fort Worth Report, Jessica Priest sat down with Maddie Parker and they talked about what short-term rentals should look like for the city. It came up in a city council meeting a couple of weeks ago. And basically, long story short, every Airbnb in Fort Worth is operated illegally or outside of city code. There is no residential space in the city of Fort Worth where you are allowed to operate a short-term home rental. It's not policed or enforced because of how time consuming that would be. It only comes if there's a complaint about a house through code compliance. And I mean, honestly, it's just the equivalent of us sticking our head in the sand and acting like we don't want to interrupt the status quo. And it kind of, to me, goes back to this idea of how like Fort Worth really operates more as a suburb than a big city. And we have personal experience with this. We rented out our guest bedrooms back in like 2016, 2017. And
Always ahead of the curve.
gotta be. And like we had great success with it. And somebody in our neighborhood, we have an idea who, but we don't know for sure, started a rumor that we were running a halfway house. And so like sent code compliance out for that, for them to, figure out that.
Were you a subject line on Nextdoor?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We were a big,
Oh, really?
I'm sure you can probably go back in the history and find it, but there was a very long thread about how we were running a halfway house. And this person posted, okay, this is funny. This person posted about how they saw this lady with her suitcase out at the curb waiting for a car, and they see this woman all the time going in and out of this house. The lady that they were talking about was from Belgium and stayed with us for 3 days. So I'm not sure where exactly they got that from. But yeah, basically code compliance comes, they smack a letter on your door, says if you don't stop in 30 days, you face a $2,000 a day fine. The fine varies a little bit. So I started going up the channels of the city. Maybe this is what like really radicalized me. I started trying to reach out to anybody in the city who would listen. And my emails, my calls got passed around to like 20, 25 different people. No one would really talk about it. No one would like listen or have a conversation about it. And so finally I gave up, which that's the name of the game, right? Like you just pass people around until they run out of options. Like we would have
Yeah.
stopped with the pandemic and having a kid on the way. But as you brought up this story today, I was thinking like it was probably 60 to $75,000 worth of revenue that we didn't get to have over the last 4 years, or from 2017 through
Yeah.
early 2020, um, because of an arbitrary decision of just acting like Airbnbs don't exist for the city. And we could act
Yeah.
like big kids and take this on and say, hey, we're going to regulate this. We're going to collect an occupancy tax on it, which gets passed on to the consumers, and really make the area a friendly place for that. But, somebody one time heard about their friend's relative's neighbor who rented out their house, and some party came in and was so loud and destroyed everything. And so they hate Airbnbs and they think that they're the
Yeah.
devil. Um, and basically, that's how we functioned since then. Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I found the fact that we're finally 5 years later having a grown up conversation around it very interesting. Um, but I don't know. Did you have any thoughts about the interview?
Well, so the part that, I always think like the how I try to stay on this podcast is very like, at the end of the day, if a large amount of consumers make decisions, we can change the world. But we all have to decide that this is what we want to prioritize. What you're talking about Airbnb is the same thing we see at every airport across the country, where they allow the taxis to line up right in the front. And what does everyone do? They literally walk down a couple blocks and they sit there for 15 minutes because they would rather sit there for 15 minutes and still jump in an Uber or a Lyft rather than hop into your damn taxi.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what cities and their old guard politics are trying to keep the old guard, hands nice with money. And if you look at the article, the mayor talks about, oh, we should have a conversation with our, what you call it, our hotel, our hotel
Yeah.
guys, or our I got to make sure they're cool
Yeah.
with it, and that I make sure that they realize that like they need to give us the thumbs up or something. Like, I just think that is so old school. Like, who cares what they think? Like, sorry for not innovating.
Yeah. Well, and so twofold on that. I really laughed at that. One, because this is already happening. So does it actually change the like hotel revenue? No, like this is already happening. So maybe they're quote unquote losing money on it. Two, we only have one independent hotel in Fort Worth, and it opened up this year. Every other one is owned by some, billionaire company that runs a chain of hotels. Who cares what they think? Like, they're not
Yeah.
Fort Worth based. If they are, it's one of our, we have to bow to our billionaire overlords to make sure it's okay, like you said. Um, but if they're not, like, why do we want this money leaving Fort Worth when you can collect the same occupancy tax on it that you're getting from hotels? You
Yeah.
really want
The
this money leaving the city that's coming in. Like, the only people benefiting from Fort Worth's tourism dollars are people that don't live here, because they're getting all of the hotel convention center revenue instead of people in the city getting to show off what Fort Worth is. It's just
Yeah.
yeah, that comment really struck me as particularly silly and, like you said, old guard.
Yeah, you have you mentioned how um, you know random billionaire groups own hotels. MCR, the country's fourth largest hotel owner operator, acquired six premium branded hotels in Texas, New Mexico, and they just required six, and two of them are in Fort Worth. So Two of the six are right. It's the Fairfield Inn, downtown convention center, and it's the Town Plaza Suites by Marriott Fort Worth, which is near the medical center. So why do we care about,
Yeah, how is that who we're out to please? And how in
yeah,
our like anti big government, like conservative Fort Worth are we acting like it's lines up to be
yeah,
policing how people earn revenue from their home?
yeah,
Yeah, this is obviously something that like I'm very passionate about because of how it bit us. But I think it's ridiculous that it's taken this long and goes back to what you said about the Rivian deal. Like we're 10 years behind the curve.
yeah. Which, by the way, I looked that up while we were talking. It was 15 years ago. Atlanta offered Kia the $400 million incentive package. We offered a $440 incentive package, and that was like our biggest package. So we are 15 years behind. You know, on that, and that's I've been in my personal life just thinking too is just like a lot of like the difference between an investor and an entrepreneur. And I think the cities that are thriving are cities that are building entrepreneurial opportunities, which is allowing people to be creative, creating innovative problems and solutions like Airbnb, like Rivian, like Uber, like these things that, were ideas, but then needed spaces to thrive to show that they could work at scale in a city. Those are the cities that are thriving, right? Silicon Valley, Austin, Miami, right? These places that provide entrepreneurship. Cities that I feel like are on the back end are cities that are protecting investors and owners, which is why Fort Worth is such a real estate city, because it's just like, and everything's about being friendly around owning land and owning stuff rather than creating stuff. And I think Fort Worth has to get into like building an more entrepreneurial city rather than a owner investor city, because it's two very different behaviors. You have a harvester who's just harvesting an asset, and you have someone else over here who's trying to create zero to one, something out of nothing. And I think that kind of energy is what happens is Airbnb comes, they create something out of nothing, and then they show up to Fort Worth and we're like, yeah, we're not here for that. We rather make an economy for these investors and owners who is more safe because they have money, it's richer. I don't know about this Airbnb thing, especially in 2016. That's a long time ago. So that they weren't friendly to entrepreneurship then. No, I mean, we haven't really improved that much since then
Yeah.
either.
And like obviously like this month Tarrant County median home price hit the highest it's ever been. Like I understand the like, oh, people are just going to buy up all this property just as Airbnbs. And like now it's more conducive to do that now than if it was regulated, because if you're having to apply for permits on these things and there's an actual function around policing them, then you can control the number that people have. Like if that's your issue, then like cap it at 2 or 3. Like there's just like presenting problems that are easily solved and saying that like, oh, that's the issue with it, we can't do it, is a like, let's maintain the status quo, we're not looking for innovation here type of attitude.
Yeah. I mean, Airbnb is at a rate where they're going, I mean, Hotel Dries less than 4 years from now will be on Airbnb being booked. I think Airbnb's next move is not just houses, it's micro hotels.
Well, and you see it a lot now. Like
Yeah.
we've moved away from using it a lot of the time because it's lost.
Apartment
Yeah.
complex. Like Monarch Apartments are on there. Like I'm like, all these apartments we're building, we can't find anyone to go in them, so half those rooms are on Airbnb.
Yeah, like especially if you're looking in major cities like LA, you'll see tons and tons of hotels that are booking individual rooms. Yeah, so I think that there's a lot there that is indicative of a wider that Fort Worth has. I'm glad that, Maddie Parker has actually acknowledged that it's an issue and something we need to talk about instead of just pretending that nothing's in the closet. But I think that we have a long way to go before there's action put behind it and um, anything significant happens.
Yeah.
But while
Yeah.
we're talking about housing, there were a few other stories that we wanted to hit on. First being Casa de Esperanza, which is a housing solution for those chronically experiencing homelessness in Fort Worth. It opened its doors in November 2020 and is a 119 unit complex that started from using federal pandemic relief funds to renovate the former hometown studios on Tannacross Drive in North Fort Worth. Residents found their new homes through the Tarrant County Homeless Coalition, and they have fully furnished full-size bathrooms, access to case managers, a dog park, and a community garden. And it's a rehabilitation program for these people. A lot of them are going back to school. Others have found jobs. 95% of them are living there a year later. So it is a long-term rehab solution to getting people back up on their feet. But it's been a resounding success, and I really enjoyed the profile on it in the Star Telegram. I did laugh.
Yeah. It shows
Oh,
that.
go ahead.
Go
I
ahead.
did laugh that it says that there's only an estimated 400 chronically homeless people in Tarrant County. Like that's insane. That
Yeah.
that you would like publish that as a real number, which depends on how they define chronically homeless and everything. But yeah, I think overall, like getting 120 people into apartments with the opportunity to get their lives back on track is an incredible thing.
Love it. Yep. And then you also had that one. Talk to me about what's happening off of race with that's like a different setup.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we need probably someone like super real estate focus who kind of knows how all of this works, from Airbnb to homeless shelters to this race thing, transform the church into some affordable housing. And then you also have um, apartment complexes. Like, it all plays together, and how is the city going to look, and who's going to lose. And then it's like, I mean, what we talked about earlier, 275 acres for community and parks. So it's like, eventually you don't have any more room to do all this stuff. So it's interesting. I wonder how it's going to fold out.
Yeah. So what you were alluding to is that the 100-year-old Riverside Baptist Church, which closed its doors in 2018, is now Cielo Place, which is a affordable housing complex that was built inside of the renovated church. The Rick Herring, the moderator of the Riverside Alliance, said he and others in the area fought to save the church when they learned that a developer wanted to demolish the building. And so in comes Austin-based Sagebrook Development, which is a firm that specializes in creating affordable housing. And up to a couple months ago, they started moving people in. So there's 80 apartments where the rent is restricted and 11 unrestricted units, meaning some tenants pay the market rent. But they use the housing tax credit program, which is used to secure equity when the developer agrees to restrict the rent in some units to 30, 50, and 60% of the median income. Honestly, you should go online and look up the building and the units and the cost of the units, like a studio is like $400 a month. We have one friend who had gotten a unit in the apartment complex, and decided that they didn't want to live alone, and so found a different living situation. But we have another who works for a nonprofit. Like, I don't know how much she makes, but I'm very confident it is not a lot of money. But even she was overqualified for the studios, and they're all out of everything larger than that. And she'd been on a wait list for a while for it. So, I mean, these are absolutely benefiting people that can't afford like $900, $1,000 for a studio apartment, or even more for trying to get into a house somewhere. And it's in a great area on Race Street that's up and coming and has a massive park walking distance from it, and just tons of amenities right there. I think it's so important that as we talk about like median home price reaching the highest it's ever been, like making sure that these types of places are being developed so that people can find affordable housing. And I think it was at some point after the podcast had started, last like year and a half, there was a development that wanted to go in on West 7th that was fought against, and ultimately turned down by the people that live in that area, because they love affordable housing but don't want that in their neighborhood. Long story short, but the city needs to make.
That's another thing we could talk about. This is being off for 3 weeks, but I don't know your takes on the like jail probation center and the Magnolia area in Elizabeth Beck's district.
I must have missed that.
There's kind of a mental health facility probation area.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone got like super paranoid, and like the most packed like meeting was this one where everyone's like, y'all gonna let people who just got out of jail walk around our neighborhood. And Elizabeth like clapped back like, man, I wish there was this kind of meeting for providing services and support to our city rather than being when now you're afraid.
Yeah, everyone thinks it's great to provide support as long as it doesn't affect your day-to-day life or come into your little bubble. And I think that's same with Airbnb. Like, that's what Fort Worth faces, is like, we don't want to pop our pretend little bubble here. But like long term, we need a lot of these apartment complexes that are popping up to have more dedicated affordable units, or Fort Worth's just going to turn into Austin, where people can't figure out how to afford to live.
Yeah. The idea of living by yourself and having to have one source of income, I've been together with my wife since we were in high school. So I just think of us always working together to live. I just can't imagine how hard that is as a single person by yourself and then wanting your own space. I mean, that is very American though, the idea of being able to do that, but it's still like, I don't know. It's just very interesting. And I think what's also interesting is how does these places make money with, I know a lot of these, you get tax credits or government stipends, some of the rent. So I don't know. What does the future look like? Does the future look like where all like more of these apartment units show up, and rather than these real estate companies actually pitting the proper value on their hotel, on their apartments, that you just now have, the government paying 40% of the bill, because more and more people can't afford to live in your apartments. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of this weird thing. Like if the city of Fort Worth had 20 apartments and all of them said the rate is 1,600 a month, but then no one can afford it. So then now you're going to have to provide some type of value where now they're $1,000 and the government's paying the other $600. So you're still quote unquote worth 1,600, but no one in Fort Worth actually can afford 1,600 because they're paying $1,000 and the government's paying the other 600. It's becoming a mess, like this inflated value on land. It's just, that's kind of where I think like it's weird about all this. Systemically, this is awesome, but like this, what is happening is awesome. But the problem is like that grander part with real estate.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's another resolution for this year, that Fort Worth can come up with a couple more of these types of affordable housing complexes and reusing old buildings. Like we travel a lot. Like we were in Savannah a couple weekends ago, and we were in Toronto over Thanksgiving. Like the number of old buildings that are preserved and reused and are beautiful and add so much character to the city is just not comparable to the number in Fort Worth that just sit decrepit. Like, how has nobody done something with the power plant building that whatever TCC has been sitting on for 20 years? How has nothing happened with the public market building that the person wants a stupid amount of money for? Like we tore down the one that was something's being rebuilt there now off of like right where Summit turns into 8th, south off of 30. Like Fort Worth, in my opinion, does not do a great job with preserving its buildings and allowing them to add to the character and tell the story of the city outside of maybe the stockyards. And I think that's a shame too. And so it's really cool to see a 100-year-old church not bulldozed, but instead given new life for decades to come.
Love it. Well, I know we've been going through a lot, and I feel like what's super cool is you have some fresh rants that been cooking and brewing. So we've been able to give it some good length on the pod. But let's go ahead and dive into wins and losses and go from there.
Yeah. My loss is that once again the Aaron Dean trial was pushed back. I really thought that it was coming this time, with jury selection set to begin January 3rd and the trial set to begin about a week later. And the defense held a bunch of motions and most of them got, but the one did not, was the trial getting pushed back to, I believe. So here we are, just sitting on our hands for another 4 months.
Yep. And my loss is a story that came out in the Star Telegram around parents just having a hard time with childcare. I just think that's statistically Fort Worth is higher than the state average so if you live in Fort Worth, it is more expensive and harder to find childcare than average Texans. And so that is something I think I'm looking for the actual number. So let me get that to you. So the Texas parents pay $777 a month. That's $9,324 annually for infant care as of 2020, and $589 a month, which is $7,062 a year for child care. This is according to the Economic Policy Institute. The costs are even higher in Fort Worth, according to analysis of costs by Care Lulu, which found that the average monthly cost for child care is $647 a month. That's $7,764 a year, based on the rate of 190 home-based programs and 274 centers. So, more expensive, and I just think about how hard that is as we try to get back to work. And because Fort Worth is a blue-collar city that does a lot of manufacturing, a lot of things, you can't telework that kind of work. So, yeah, that's probably my kind of take, especially with the holidays. Shout out to everyone who's working over the holidays and sacrificing Christmases and things like that to do what you have to do, and just making sure things are running in our
Yeah.
city.
And our elected officials on a state and national level from Texas and from Fort Worth are opposed to universal pre-K. It just doesn't line up. Like it's something that people want, people need, and we just continually vote against it because no good reason.
Yeah. Come on now. So let's go to wins. I'm gonna hit my wins because then I know you're doing the list. So my win is actually this story that came out of the Fort Worth report in the environmental subject section. Fort Worth could have a trash wheel removing litter from Trinity River next fall. They need to scale this as quickly as possible because I think, there's trash everywhere in all the parks of Fort Worth. And if they can also turn this trash wheel into pooper scoopers, that will also be dope because no one likes to pick up their damn dog shit. So that would be dope. But anyways, we're starting with a wheel that scoops trash in the Trinity, which if you looked at it after the city council approved basically a trash wheel that is solar and water powered machine that has found success across other cities, but it basically picks up trash on its own. And so pitting two of these in the Trinity River will allow us to pick up plastics and styrofoam. Each of these wheels costs $600,000, and the budget to maintain them is $1 million. But the city approved kind of doing this and allowing for donations to run, which will be, but they can't run more than $2.5 million to fund this Trinity River Water Wheel initiative. They want to put them near tourist areas. There's actually, if you look at the article, there's examples of how Baltimore's has one called Mr. Trash Wheel, and it has eyes, and like it looks cool. But it just seems like a cool way to solve picking up trash in an environmental issue, but also making it fun and like bringing everyone together as a city is people symbolizing, hey, we live in a clean city. Hey, this is here, and I think that's pretty cool. So if this got the money it needs, it looks like the story was all about trying to boost the value of getting this here and getting donors. So we'll see where it goes, but I thought that was a win because it's an innovative, cool idea that also helps make the city better.
Yeah, I agree. If it could also get the leeches out
Yeah.
of the river, that would be great too. Man, our section of the Trinity's got a lot of problems. But I think this would be awesome. My win comes from the front page of the Sunday paper this week, and just about all of the new restaurants from top Fort Worth chefs that are coming in 2022. Tim Love's got a new restaurant going into the Stockyards. Don Artemio has Juan Ramon Cardenas, Chef Juan is the chef. His restaurant is a Don Artemio. And it is, I guess, a little bit of a chain, but highlights Mexican cuisine. Ben Merritt, who unfortunately Ben's Triple B shut down maybe 6 months ago, but is best known for Fixture on Magnolia, is opening the Fitzgerald near the Ridgely Theater, which will offer food at a price point lower than prime steakhouses and is trying to fit into that market. I'm a big fan of his food. Blaine Sanford, who is behind Grace and Little Red Wasp, is opening a mid-century modern restaurant in the 1961 vintage former bank tower facing Burnett Park called 61 Osteria. Quince from Gonzalo Martinez is opening at 1701 River Run on the Trinity in West Bend, which he has some great food. I believe he's been operating out of a ghost kitchen here, but a chef for years at the Rainbow Room in New York will bring a similar menu of sushi, rice bowls, and entrees such as steak and seafood. John Bonnell is opening John's Grill, which is over like right next to Fuzzy's by TCU. Seems similar enough to Dutch's. And he's also behind Buffalo Bros, but he'll be over in that area. And then even more new, Bricks is getting its storefront. Kelly Cience, the original Fort Worth Birria taco place, is getting its new spot. Fred's is moving to its new spot. Paris Coffee Shop is getting its new owner is going to be reopening. So a lot of highlights.
We'll have this in the description as well, because I know that was a lot of different restaurants coming.
Yeah, and like you said about an entrepreneur versus a investor city, like I think that goes for food too, in cultivating chef driven restaurants instead of entrepreneur driven restaurants. And obviously there can be, but the top food cities in the world aren't driven by people saying, I'm going to open a restaurant and then, finding some random person to come along and maybe make a menu that's inspired by it. Like, who knows? It's a lot different when a chef is stepping forward and going and finding or creating the back themselves for stuff like this to happen. And I think it's a lot
of like, it's art. When food is seen as art, I even think that's probably, I even think like when, what Hotel Dries is like, even when buildings and doing business is seen as an art or a version of expression, things are just better, right? So it's just, I mean, these are all exciting. My whole thing is you got two people from the East Side, always doing a podcast about all the cool shit that's happening in North Texas and on the West Side. It's like, maybe that's my resolution is, can we get a nice restaurant on the East Side?
Yeah.
I'll promise I'll go every single day.
Well, we had Ben's Triple B, and they thought they were going to make it, and then just issues kept arising and decided it was time to shut down. But that is a good mention for the Fort Worth Report has moved its office over to those buildings right in Black Coffee across from Texas Wesleyan. So let's get.
It looks temporary though.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, I think there is a temporary space, and then also planning to make it they're
trying to make it
a permanent space as well.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's try and get more cool stuff over to this side of the city. Because I mean, when you see like Coffee Folk is packed, like the people over here want to support stuff. So yeah, I agree with you. All in all, it was great to catch up and get back into it. And I'm excited to get back into the rhythm of making this happen now that the holidays are done. And maybe things will be a bit more stable, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, well, we'll be coming big for 2022. Thank you for kind of just being listeners. I know we have been all over the place the last couple of weeks, and we're really committed to this and wanting to provide good stories. We have a lot of big things coming up in Fort Worth next year, and as well as we want to get our guests back up here. We have some exciting people that we've been reaching out to and scheduling, and so that's going to be coming as well. So thank you for being a 817 podcast listener. Hopefully you had a wonderful holidays and a happy new year.
See you next time.
Dopamine swipe. Follow us like double tap. Now they control your life.